What's up, everybody? Eric Kaiser here. Gonna sit here and enjoy the sunrise. That's probably what we're going to do in the morning. So if anybody happens to stumble across this page and wonder what, life is like when you live it without the rules, right? That's pretty much what I did. I didn't pay attention to rules. I told you I would start right off. So very early on in my earlier years, 13, 14, I wasn't ever the follower of this type of stuff, but I wasn't the actual leader, I should say. But I never said no to anything that kicked in the feeling of adrenaline, fear, anything like that. So me and my friends started getting into bad habits of being, thieves, and vandals, and just really not paying attention to the laws and not really caring and kind of living by our own rules. And that's why I want parents to understand, I was such a good kid. I just got so corrupt by what I was raised in and what I was seeing that I felt like there was no love. So I replaced the love feeling with, basically do what I want and live in fear, feeling that at least I felt something in that realm of life, The word love didn't exist in my household. Still to this day. I'm 43, and thank God I woke up and I got it, and I realized in life what was important. So, me and my friends were running around doing stupid things. Like, one time we broke into a house and we stole some baseball cards. And at that age, you don't even realize how serious that is, At 17, one of my friends had got a credit card and we all went and bought stuff on it. So I was facing credit card fraud by 17. Just things that other parents probably would have, sent their kids to therapy or something, or at least sat them down. In my house, it was, fear your father type of stuff. And no offense to him, but by 16, I was ready to throw hands with my dad. It was a talk throughout the neighborhood how when I turned 18, I was going to sell tickets. And, that's bad. That means I really had a lot of anger and a lot of hate towards my dad before 18 years old. And I really gave up on my dad really early on in age because I knew he wasn't never going to be there for me. He lived his life, that he had his children, and, that was it. It wasn't really his job to raise them or anything like that. My poor mom worked her ass off and pretty much paid for the important things like my braces and anything else we really need, while my dad kind of put his money away. And if he ever hears this, hey, it is what it is. If you're okay with the way you lived your life, I'm okay with it. I forgave everybody. That's a part of all this. I don't hold anybody accountable for the decisions that they made. We're all human beings. None of us are perfect. And yeah, granted, if a different path was taken back then, who knows where your kids can go when you create them an avenue that is bump free, right? So, let's just get right to high school. I already had my first love, I guess you would call it, Brenda Doherty, my little girl crush. And, now it was time to move on to high school and really find out what crushing it was all about, right? So, I wasn't the most suave guy, right, in the younger years. I wasn't sleeping with everybody and this and that really young. My first girl I slept with, I was 17 years old, Most people laugh at that, oh, but you know what? The first girl I got with, because I was so tore up on alcohol, I never even got off. So that made me look like a rock star out of the hole, right? First time I had sex for hours and hours and hours. And, yeah, that's what started it off, right? I got addicted to that feeling. I got addicted to sex and the alcohol on top of the sex. And, I'm hanging out with older kids at that point that drove. And, we're always drinking and we're out doing crazy stuff. And that's what I thought life was about, right? I didn't know that life was, you could be at home educating yourself and create a world that would be amazing, because I didn't realize, and neither do a lot of people, that most of our thoughts and our habits that we create as kids create our adult lifestyle. So, you know, at 17, the shit that we were doing, God, I mean, by the time I got my license, that should have been a death sentence for me, because I was driving around at 14 years old with nobody knowing it. You know, I was driving all over the damn place. At 17, I'm fired up on alcohol, and I have a driver's license. So you better bet your ass every single weekend there was craziness going down, you know. I was dating crazy girls right out of the hole. This girl, Lisa, who was just batshit crazy, man. First girl I ever found out what violence was. And it's crazy how many times after that I found out what violence was in a relationship, like I was creating that crap after experiencing it one time. That's what I thought maybe, I guess, relationships were, right? That was like one of my first relationships where, you know, she was a little bit older and definitely not my type. You know, if you look at the course of relationships I went through after, I guess I kind of had a little bit low self-esteem out of the hole, but it was a learning experience. You know, we were together for a little while, I guess over a year. I can't remember that much, you know, but things that happened back then, like, Jesus, the kids that were growing up with, we were all so friggin' crazy. Like, anybody say anything to anybody, and there was a problem one night. These dudes wanted to fight my boy Doc over some stupid chick, and they were chasing us in a car in a Ford Taurus, and I was driving a Cavalier Z24. And I mean, we held speeds at 125, 130 for about at least 20 friggin' minutes. I couldn't lose these guys. They would, every time the car I was driving was torquey as hell, but it had no top end, so it would run out of top end at about 125. And that car would just creep on me. And unlucky for them, I'm a damn good driver. Even at 17, like, I had balls of steel. I would hold it on. I didn't care. You know, I knew what the circumstances were. And, you know, I didn't really care, you know. I was living a life of just balls out from 17 years old, not really worrying about the outcomes. And, you know, we were going around a bend and they weren't paying attention. And sure enough, they almost lost their damn life that night. They snapped a street sign in half that could have easily went through the windshield. They missed telephone poles, but, you know, they were down, and I won that game. And no shit, like, that happened to me so many times growing up with guys like Matt Fernandez, who I ended up, you know, being a little bit tighter with as we got older, because I think he noticed heart, you know. I might not have been the best fighter in the world, but when you don't back down and you'll take an ass whooping, that's kind of where your heart starts to come in at. And I fought some way bigger dudes than me growing up, and I didn't care. It wasn't about win, lose, or draw. It was about that heart, because my mom instilled at me at a young age. And parents, be careful what you tell your kids, because certain things get stuck. Like this got stuck. My mom straight up said, you know, it takes a man to stand up and fight for what he believes in, win, lose, or draw, and it takes two men to shake each other's hands afterwards. So no matter what was going down in what fight, I always made sure that at the end of that fight, we all shook hands. And I did that quite a few times in my life. And, you know, the growing pains of life is definitely between, I would say, 12 and 18 years old is when that side of you is getting sculpted. Are you going to back down? Are you going to, you know, are you going to stand your ground? Even in high school when I first got there. Now, I was cocky as shit because I felt like my sister was just there, and the rules of the game going into high school, your sister knows people, you know people. But, you know, people try to give me trays, and I just straight up said fucking no. You know, take your tray and shove it up your ass. And whatever the outcome of that was going to be, I didn't care. You know, I played football, I played baseball. I already knew a lot of people even as a freshman, because I was already kicking it with older kids like Harry McKnight, who he was my road dog for a long time, you know. And We all just transferred bad habits. We all transferred habits that we were learning from our houses and bring them out into the scene and transfer them. I had some friends slip into crack addiction early on in the game where me, God bless, whatever, at 14 had the worst anxiety attack from smoking weed. I literally thought for the rest of my life that any other drug would kill me because our government jammed it down my head so much that weed would freaking kill me. And here we are now, right, 2018. Marijuana is legal in a bunch of places. It's being used for medicine, and our crappy-ass government still wants to play the brainwash game and have people convinced that it's a, scheduled whatever drug like heroin. Get out of here, people. Wake that right there alone. How there's not millions of Americans going batshit crazy over that fact alone, that your government lies to you all the effing time. And then I can't post something about 9/11 on Facebook without people trying to rip my head off. Come on, wake up. That's what this is about. This is about trying to wake your asses up. So if little triggers like that go off in your head, if you were a 75 baby like me, then you grew up being lied to, bullshitted by the government. And that's what it is. It's just straight BS, right? Now, I don't care if you smoke weed, you don't smoke weed, you eat weed, you shoot weed. I don't give a shit. It'll never hurt you. And that's my point I'm trying to make. But alcohol introduces to so many people so young. It's legal. Every day a new company, new batch, new flavor, new something comes out, new convenience to jam it down your throat, and yet we're all still brainwashed into it. So anyway, near-death experience is already young on in my life, right? When I was real young, I almost died from meningitis. But they caught that just at the last second. And it wasn't fun, but I lived. And dumbness things I did, right? Dumbness. That's not even a word, but I don't care. I'm not cutting this, not editing this. This is not the easiest thing in the world to jump back through your past and keep coming back and forth. But I remember one time it was me and Matt Hunt, and we were all hanging out at Tommy Spangler's house. He had a place off of the other side of 14th Street. And I don't know where we were going to get cigarettes or something, but I remember we were coming back, and keep in mind, we always all drove like asses. Like, we could have killed people at any given time. So I was probably doing about, 80, 95 in one lane going up the hill in a regular lane. Well, I didn't know my buddy Harry was coming up the other side, passing his cousin, doing about $1.20. And when I say that we both moved fractions of inches to not head-on collide, and the mirrors of our vehicles damn near clicked when we went by at probably the combined force of if we would have caught at 200 miles an hour. And literally, I stopped the truck, and me and Chris Hunt both asked ourselves, are we alive? Right? Because it was that damn close. I mean, so close that it make your butthole pucker. Right? Like, you knew that you just got lucky that God just gave you another chance. But now that I live today, I know that that's not the case. Just crazy, crazy things are happening in my life that's making me do all this stuff. And it's amazing crazy, though, So always keep that in mind while you're listening to that, why I'm doing this. I want to educate people that, number one, we are a product of what we come from. So if you're a parent getting trashed and your kids seeing it, and you have yourself in a circumstance of violence and screaming, and that's the communication tool, and you better just look at your kids now and realize that you're raising people like me, because I don't care what you do. You're creating them, you're molding them, you're turning them into what they're about to become, right? Talk about shortcomings of other people, like, drugs, like, ravished through our areas. Oxycontin, heroin, crack. I remember crack being like the first one. Everybody was a crackhead. It was insane, And that streamed from a more wealthy town of Hamilton. That's where most of the kids were getting tore up on drugs. And, the town of Hamilton talked about the town of Collins Lakes, where like we were the dirty druggies, but I can lay fact to that there was way more dirty druggies in Hamilton than there were in Collins Lakes. I can promise you that. The dirty people in the lakes were getting drunk at the dam and fighting, y'all. They weren't out doing drugs. But that's just things that, you know, we grow up with in certain areas. That's another thing that we don't realize is how many different areas there are in this country to grow up in, to live in. Like, we don't know what circumstances other people are in. So my circumstance, you know, I came from a small town where everybody knew everybody. And I mean, everybody knew everybody. And it's still like that to this day. You know, everybody knows everybody in Hamilton. Everybody knows everybody in Folsom. I knew, from the social side of the game, I knew everybody everywhere. I couldn't go to a club in my 20s or 30s without knowing people. So, you know, the age of 17 was a lot of just like crazy hecticness, you know. Always just thinking about fighting. Just that was always on the back of your head in our towns growing up. There wasn't really nothing you could do about it besides deal with it. It was a part of your life, and there was no getting away from it, you know. You either had to adapt to it or go hide in a box somewhere. But I was an active person. I like being outside all the time. So the more you're out and about, the more you're going to run into people, you know. A little bit about work ethic, though. Like, 11 years old, I was already doing a paper route. 13, I was working on a farm. Like, I like to work. I understood the concept of earning money. Didn't bother me at all. You know, 17, threw out some crazy relationships, threw out some close calls. You know, there was always close calls, though. Like, me and all my friends drove like idiots. You know, there was times that Harry would be getting it and we would lose control and miss ending our lives by inches, you know, and that happened all the time. But, you know, by 18, that's when, you know, a lot of my life changed. And this is a story a lot of people know, who I grew up with. And it bothers me because a lot of people never really decided to get the real version of the story. But basically, there was a pit party one night, and this girl, Shannon, was back there, and she had dated one of my friends for a long time, and this girl was not a good girl whatsoever. This girl was a girl cheating on her boyfriend. You know, this girl was a girl, she was a tramp, I guess you would say. But that's not here for there. But, you know, she just was that girl. And, like, little girls need to understand, if you're going to be throwing your cha-cha out there, you're going to get a reputation of that, and some crappy things might happen to you, you know. But I'll say the same thing for her. She didn't have the best upbringing. Her dad ended up being a crook, like a real big crook, like a mafia time crook, and ended up with AIDS. And, you know, I think he has passed away since. But basically, this girl came back. There was a whole bottle of vodka. She's back there with a couple of guys. You know, there's a whole bunch of young kids back there. I'm the only one back there who's 18. So, you know, we're all drinking. This girl slams a 7.5 of Absolute, just kills this shit. Passes herself out dead on the ground for hours and hours and hours. And it's cold out. It's getting to winter. You know, we were fucking kids. We were doing dumb shit like shooting dirt on her with quads and just dumb shit. Not causing any kind of harm, no pain. You know, a couple of guys wanted to do some retarded shit and pull her top up. And a lot of us, you know, we talked them out of that. So a lot of the stuff that people thought went down never went down while most of us were there. Now, we all did leave, and the two guys who brought her there, who should have brought her home, decide to fucking leave her there. So, I'm trying to go home. I'm the type of guy that shit's wearing on my head, even though I can't stand the girl. And I decide, all right, I'm going to go back and help this person. So, I turn around drunk as shit, driving back to the farm. I run out of friggin' gas. Now I decide, all right, you got a cell phone. Could run all the way back there. Or no, at the time I had a pager. I had to run to the damn payphone. That's right. So I run all the way back to check on her, to try to get her. And as I'm running through this field, I'll never forget this. I ran right into a wire fence. Didn't even see it. Flipped over. Hit me in chest. Thank God this guy, who I forget his name, but He drove F-150, lifted, standard cab, blue. Man, I want to say his name was Ricky. So, man, I just forget his name. He was friends with my sister's boyfriend, PJ. And he was back there spotting deer, so I waved him down. He picked me up. I told him to deal with it. They left her back there. We went back there. We spotted. Nobody was there. So, I feel a lot better about life. You know, somebody took her home. Good shit. So, I go back. They drop me off at the Wawa. I call my sister on the payphone. She brings me gas. I go home. I get a call from the cops later on the next day. I have to go in and get, you know, questioned about this incident. Well, I go in there and by my disbelief and shock, they're accusing us of rape, violence acts, like shit that like I don't even want to go back into because it disgusts me so much that people viewed me that way, you know, and they only viewed me that way because of media. And one of the little peckerheads who brought her there, his grandfather was very rich. So immediately they figured out, oh, there was a guy back there, 18. Let's slander his friggin' name all over the place, even though I was 100% innocent. And I actually tried to help the frickin' girl. So now I'm known from 18 to 25 as a friggin' basically rapist who caused this girl all kinds of trauma and all kinds of BS. And, you know, I lived with that for 7 fucking years. People giving me death threats, you know, not ever feeling safe, learning about anxiety very early on in life. And you know what? It flipped a switch inside of me that said, F everyone. If you thought I was already going down a bad road, man, I was about to light that effing road on fire because how dare people, right? You try to do the good effing thing in life. You got to go to court for this stupid shit. And then finally, all the charges get thrown out against you. The only charge they try to stick with you is underage drinking. And they can't even do that. So they give you some kind of disorderly conduct ticket. Now let me effing tell you something. That disorderly conduct ticket, even after I called the newspapers and everything at 18. But what bothered me more was the phone call I remember getting from my father because this information happened to make it on the radio. And I remember that man telling me over the phone that he gave up on me, that was that. And I kind of wanted to ask him, even though I was young, when the F did you ever have me, right? My dad told me to pick something after that incident because school was not an option anymore. I had to get out of school. So I got out of school and my dad says, pick anything you want to do, Eric. Well, I want to learn how to run computers and work on computers. Keep in mind, I was 18 years old. Imagine if I would have got into computers at 18. Hi, Steve Jobs. You probably would have known me. But things like that didn't happen for me, right? So I learned at an early age, grab your sack, take care of yourself. I went and found a job that opened up some doors of travel, and I started running around the country. And I'm going to enjoy this sunrise now, but I'm going to end off there. And tomorrow, if I need to backtrack at all, I will. But, you know, I want everybody to realize, I want more parents to realize, like, how we're able to create our kids' lives. I mean, mine got pretty much created by alcohol. And that's why I went the way I did. So, always remember, you know, the keys are in your hands. At the end of the day, the keys are in all of our hands. That's the reason why I live the lifestyle I live today. I'm 100% healthy. I'm very aware of what goes in my body. I will never drink alcohol again. I will never put a cigarette in my mouth. Like, all that stuff pollutes your body. And if you're doing it, your kids are watching you do it. They're going to do it. So today, you know, maybe you should wake up to that fact. Love you. God bless. See you tomorrow.